How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Sports Talk YouTube channel. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for the game picks in what week is it now?
Week
It's
12.
week 12, man. It is almost over. Only 7 more games of NFL football left this year, at least for my team. Obviously, I think your team now only has 6 more games left because they've also had their bye week, but yeah, man, it cometh so it takes so long for it to come and then it goes away so fast.
Yep.
It's like every 14-year-old in bed.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Way to get our video struck early. That's good. I like it.
Neither of us I think that's going to get a claim. People say worse stuff. But regardless, yeah, week number 12. This is going to be hopefully another good entertaining week of football. Last week there was I felt like a few more upsets, and again we didn't put out a video for Thursday, just again some of the schedules with us this week and just tiredness ultimately just didn't allow us to get that video up. But the Browns ended up beating the Steelers. Both of us ended up picking the Steelers in that game ultimately,
Yeah.
but yeah, we would have both likely said Browns could very easily win this game, but this is the Steelers and they're playing so well and they just beat the Ravens
And
and
it became such a sloppy, messy
oh,
game, that weather that rolled into that game. It was a fun game to watch,
so fun.
but stressful as fuck because you just don't know what's going to happen when it gets that nasty,
Yeah, and at one point I remember receiving a text from you going, "I love this weather." And my response was, "You're a sick individual."
right?
Because we're Canadian. We have to look at that weather more often than not and it just makes us really really depressed.
Yeah, to be fair, I love watching that
Yes.
weather. I don't love living in that weather.
No, no.
Yeah.
But before we go on just random rants, might as well get into our game predictions of the week. And starting out with an NFC North battle and my Chicago Bears at home taking on the Minnesota Vikings, where the Minnesota Vikings are minus 3.5 points.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears looked a little bit better last week. They almost beat the Packers, and then they remembered, wait, we're on the track to 2,500 games without beating them. We can't break this streak, and let themselves get a block kick, and it was painful. I loved it because at one point you were like, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna turn this game on. We'll see what happens." And that's what you got to turn it on to, basically, was looking like you might pull out a win, and then you didn't. But even so, I don't think the Bears have enough in the tank right now to go toe to toe with what the Vikings are putting out. And so, I mean, for me, I looked at this and it didn't take me very long that even in Chicago, I think the Vikings win this game, and I think they cover that spread as well.
And just going back to that Steelers or that Packers game again, we were talking about on that kind of last drive, and everyone's at this point going like, oh, Bears are going to win this game. They're going to kick the field goal. It's going to go in. I'm sitting back going like, it's not going to go in. It's either going to be a miss, or it's going to be a block, or there's going to be a
Hmm.
penalty, or there's going to be something because this is what's going to happen. And I got a message from our good buddy Will, who does the baseball on our channel as well, and he goes, tying the rope. I'm like, no, I expected it to happen. Like, at no point did I expect to win this game. Yeah, I watched a quarter of football, but it was one of those things where it was like, okay, like the offense is kind of moving the ball, and this is going to be an excellent test for Thomas Brown and that offense, because Thomas Brown, the new offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, looked really, really good last week and looked really, really promising. Got the Bears offense looking like what it was supposed to be for their rookie quarterback. Like, this was the offense that everyone was calling for. Exotic runs, lots of runs, exotic throws, moving the ball out and getting the ball out of Caleb's hand quickly. 2.4 seconds was the average for him to get the ball out. And that is going to be a very, very important thing to have happen coming into tomorrow's game against the Vikings. This Vikings team, they come at you hard, they come at you fast, but that defense has a lot of vulnerability. While they are
Yeah.
a very fluid moving type defense, their secondary is bad. They give up a ridiculous amount of receiving yards. And I think the Bears, if they're smart, they're going to be able to find a way to take advantage of that. They have to keep the run game at least. They have to try to still work this run game against the Vikings. Yes, the Vikings have the third best run defense in the NFL, but they're also basically telling you, we don't want you to run the ball. So, you're going to run it a few times. We're going to stop you, and then we're going to basically try to make you pass it against us, even though we have a bad pass defense. This is going to be an important game, I think, for both the development of Thomas Brown and for Caleb Williams. And I do think the Bears will potentially be able to take the ball away from Sam Darnold because he has shown the ability to give the ball away on key crucial situations throughout the last couple weeks. He has not been spectacular. But with that being said, I think the Vikings are just going to be a little bit too much. And again, like I've said the entire year, with this coaching staff, with Matt Eberflus at the helm, I cannot confidently say that a Bears game is going to be won. There's been too many times throughout his tenure in Chicago where I've just been, oh yeah, like this should be an easy win, and then it's not. Like again, the Patriots game a few weeks ago, everyone looked at me and said, "How are you not picking your Bears to beat the Patriots?" I was going, I've seen this story play out. I've seen it too many times, and the team is just broken. And I think it's going to be a close game, but I think the Vikings are ultimately going to win this game. But I do think the Bears are going to cover the spread. Next game up on our list is also another NFC North team. This time it is the Lions taking on the Colts. And the Lions are only minus 7.5 points favorites in this one, which again feels insulting.
Yeah, yeah, that's really low. I mean, we've seen the Lions put up 50 spots against multiple teams this year, and it's probably going to happen again this Sunday because the Colts defense is not anything flashy or special. It's decent, they might make a few stops, but the Lions are just going to run wild on the Colts at this point. This was another one. It took me no time at all. I saw it and I was like, yeah, Lions win, Lions cover that spread. It was very easy for me to decide that.
Yeah, we talked about the Jags game last week where it was what minus 13.5 for the Lions on the spread in that particular game. We're like, oh yeah, we don't really like taking that. Like again, like I said last week's video, this is a game where you put up college spread numbers, where you put Alabama versus bumfuck nowhere school that's in Division 3 type situation where you go minus 34-point favorites. Yeah, I don't think the betters properly learned this week because they made it lower with a team that has a very similar defense in terms of where they've been this year to the Jags.
Like maybe it was just because Anthony Richardson did so much last week and they were like, oh, look, it's the Colts are going to be good again. But as we've seen with Anthony Richardson after that week last week, I think we both sort of expect him to come in, try and do that again this week and only make it halfway through the first quarter. And then he'll be out for the game because he runs like he has nothing to live for.
He runs with such reckless abandonment. It is absolutely insane. But yeah, I think if the spread on this game was minus 21, I would still probably take the Lions in this one because
Yeah.
the Anthony, and not only does Anthony Richardson like to run with reckless abandonment, he also loves to put the ball in horrific spots. And while this Lions defense isn't the best in the secondary, it's still young and they are getting better and better and better. And yeah,
And
this
they've
is
been getting takeaways consistently.
that again, if I'm a Lions fan, I'm looking at the spread and I'm going, really, guys? Like, are we putting it this low again? But yeah, I'm taking the Lions in this one, covering the spread. One of the easiest games to pick this week, and of course, by us saying it, the Colts are going to go out there and put up 35 on them, and the Lions are going to score 6 points.
Yeah, 100%.
Next up, we have an AFC East matchup where the New England Patriots head down to Miami to take on the Dolphins, where the Miami Dolphins are minus 7.5-point favorites.
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty favorite line in a division that often plays close, tight games. You know, like I know the Patriots aren't great, but they've been able to get some things going at times throughout this season. And I think they might be able to get some of that run game rolling in Miami. And so I don't like that spread there, but the Dolphins, they're playing for pride at this point. They know the division's well out of hand. You know, they don't have a chance to come back to
It's the Bills
Bill.
division.
But that seventh wild card spot is still something that could very well be achievable if they can get everything rolling and get on a win streak. You know, Tua needs to stop leading with his head in everything he does, whether it's running or tackling or anything, like period. Like stop. Just stop. You throw an interception, you go, oh well, that's a pick six. Don't try to make the tackle, man. For him, no, don't do it.
He is not the juggernaut in the Marvel comics where he just smashes his head
Right?
into everything. He he cannot afford that.
No, no. But we saw the Dolphins start to get back to their old ways a little bit last week, and I think we see them get more on track this week. You know, get Tyreek Hill involved more, and so I do think the Dolphins will win this game at home against the Patriots, and even that 7.5 point spread. No, you know what? I think the Patriots will be able to keep it close enough to be able to cover that.
Yeah, I think we've seen the Dolphins really start to get a little bit more. It almost feels like they're in week 4 of the season because like they just haven't had Tua for as much time this year.
Because that's what concussions do. You forget things. They're
Yeah.
like, it's only week 4, right, guys? Probably true in the locker room when they're talking. Like, all right,
Exactly.
week 4, guys, let's go.
Why is it so cold? And why does everyone keep saying it's
Yeah, it's
November
never
and
been
it's
this
almost
cold in
thanks
Miami in September before.
Yeah, it's just absolutely insane. But you know what? I like what I've seen from Drake May this year, and you know he's been keeping his team in games. But I think Miami is just going to be just a little bit too much in this one. I think Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, with Tua, Jalen Waddle are all going to be able to really have things under control and set in stone. But I think the Patriots are going to keep this close. So I think Miami wins the game, but Patriots cover the 7.5 point spread. You and I always kind of get a little bit worried when it gets to a touchdown point difference for the spread, but so for me, this is just one of those games where I feel like it is more alongside the lines of the Dolphins winning, but Pats cover. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into New Jersey to take on the now Daniel Jones-less New York Giants, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are minus 6.5 point favorites. And in this game, I'm pretty sure Mike Evans is also slated to come back.
Yeah, Mike Evans is set to return this week, and we get to see the return also of, the Guido Tommy DeVito. And so we'll see what happens there. A lot of people were shocked by that announcement, not just the release of Daniel Jones, but the fact that Drew Lock was the hands down number 2 quarterback all season long.
And they just jumped him.
And right, usually when the number 1 goes down or is benched, the number 2 comes into that spot. But they said, nah, we're gonna leave you as number 2 and leapfrog the number 3 to that starting role. So just more bizarre decisions by the New York management where all you're doing there is making Drew Lock go, yep, I don't want to be here next year either. So
Yep.
it's going to be interesting, but can DeVito get enough going to beat this Bucks team who have been explosive and impressive even without Godwin and Evans? And so getting Mike Evans back, even if it's at a limited role because they're going to manage that to make sure he doesn't re-injure that hamstring, they don't have to worry between Otton and Bucky Irving and just Baker Mayfield putting this team on his shoulders. I think the Bucks have this game well in hand and should be able to beat a falling Giants team and cover that spread as well.
Yeah, I also think that Brian Dabo, the head coach of the New York Giants, I think he's just kind of in this mode now where I think he knows he's gone at the end of the year and he's just saying, you know what, screw it. Like, I don't really care anymore. Like, I'm not coaching for my job because I don't think I'm going to be there. Again, make sure to watch our podcast later this week. We're going to be talking a lot about coaching and where coaches are potentially going to go. But yeah, I just think the Bucks right now, they're going to be a little too strong. And even if Mike Evans plays in a limited role, even if he doesn't play at all at this point, I still feel confident that the Bucks will be able to get this win. The only big
Yeah.
thing is Tommy DeVito going to have that Italian stallion magic with Malik Neighbors, but even then, I think most teams, I think the Bucks kind of look at that and go, we're not going to be caught off guard like the teams last year did. We're going to be a little bit better prepared for it. I don't know if Tommy DeVito played against the Bucks last year or if
E-
it,
Even so, I just don't think there'll be enough firepower for that Giants team to hang
yeah.
enough. Like I could definitely see this being a game that finishes like 35-24 or something like that.
Mhm.
I think the Giants will be able to put some points on the board, more so than when Danny Dimes was there, because we can't forget that Tracy has been lights out at running back for them, and they
He
do still
has.
have Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
And they have one of the best defenses. Dexter Lawrence, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, is sort of our front runner for Defensive Player of the Year at this point. And so the Giants, I think, have enough there to hang with the Bucks a little bit,
It's
but
just
I
not going to
don't
be
think
able
it's
to
enough to
finish it
cover
off.
that 6.5 point spread.
Yeah. You and I are in agreement on that one. Bucks win that game, cover the spread. I'm not going to say this is a toilet bowl game of the week because Baker Mayfield
Nope.
has been so good, but this is one of
No,
those
the Bucks are
games.
good.
Yeah, but this is just one of those games where I don't think either of us are particularly looking at it going, yay. But next up on our list, where we have the Washington Commanders on a little bit of a skid at the moment, taking on the Dallas Cowgirls, and the Commanders are 10.5 point favorites.
This is a big game for the Commanders because, as you mentioned, lost to the Steelers, lost to the Eagles. That Eagles one hurts more. The Steelers
Yes,
outside of the division, outside of the conference, not a
doesn't really matter.
huge deal. And it's against a team that traditionally does beat rookie quarterbacks. That Eagles loss, however, that was a tough one within their division when they were already in the driver's seat. They basically relinquished that number one spot to Philly with that. And now they're going, okay, we have to take this game from Dallas because we have to keep pace with not only the Eagles now, but with the rest of the teams potentially vying for a wild card spot. And so this is a really big game for them, and it's always a big rivalry between these two teams. It's it's going to be interesting because the Cowboys are in that free fall. Dak Prescott done for the year, and Cooper Rush just didn't look great. And for some reason, like I know he's not the most accurate quarterback, but Jerry Jones has even said he has zero intention of playing Trey Lance this year. And it's like, why did you spend a fourth round pick on the guy if you're not going to use him at all? Like you spent a
Exactly.
fourth round pick on Jonathan Mingo and he's out there every week. Why not put Trey Lance? Maybe he sparks that offense just enough that you have some excitement for your fans. Like I get it. You don't care. You're going to make profit either way, Jerry Jones, whether you win or lose, but like think of your fan base sometimes because what are you doing with Cooper Rush? I don't think he's the guy. And if it was me, I'd be putting Trey Lance in there going, even if he throws 5 interceptions and we lose, okay, then I know that he's not the guy. But at this point, it's like you're holding him back going, well, I don't want anybody else to give him a contract if he's good.
Yeah. It to me, it's just a lot of just stupidity from the Cowboys. And again, we love laughing at the Cowboys because it's so easy to laugh at them and their fan base because they're just the worst. Only team
Yeah.
that's worse fan base is the Packers. But it's something where even last week you're just going like, why not put Trey Lance in for one of those last drives of the game? See what you have. Again, it's meaningless football, guys. Like you're not playing for playoff spots. You're not playing for a Super Bowl this year. You're literally playing for a draft pick at this point. And so what is the harm in a last minute game where even if you get a touchdown, you're not going to be in a position to win it? And again, we're just going to see Mike McCarthy continue to just make bonehead decisions, but then again, he is kind of be the puppet of Jerry Jones at the moment. I've never loved Mike McCarthy as a coach anyways, so it's one of those things is just like it's just dumb all around. I think the Commanders ultimately win this game, and you know what? I do think they cover that 10.5 point spread. I just the Cowboys are just broken. They are just ridiculously broken. Now, granted, the Cowboys do have all of their wins on the road this year. It's only been at home where they've struggled to really do anything. But even what we saw last week, I just continue to go, like, what's the point of even giving the Cowboys props or credits when they just keep doing dumb stuff like this and they just keep pooping on the floor and going, did I do good? You go, no, you shit on the floor. Clean it up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, for me, it's Cowboys lose this game and they don't cover that spread.
Yeah, because even though that's a hefty spread, I think the Commanders win this, and I think they cover that spread for sure because it's just, like I said, this is a point of a Commanders team that nobody expected to be good, and they're looking at this going, we have a shot at definitely playoffs. If we can do enough, we might even get a home playoff game, which was unheard of for Washington
Mm-hmm.
before this season kicked off. So this is a big, big game for them within their division.
Moving forward, where we have the Kansas City Chiefs going to Charlotte to take on the Panthers. And just like how the Commanders had a 10.5 point spread, so do the Kansas City Chiefs after coming off of their first loss of the season.
Yeah, we talk about pissed off Joe Burrow a lot. We don't get to see pissed off Patrick Mahomes very often because his team usually wins more than the Bengals do. But we might get to see that this week, which could be fun. We might get to see the Chiefs actually put up a 40 spot on a team because so often they just sort of go, you know what? 25 points, that's enough. We're going to win. We're good. I think this is one of those games where the Chiefs just go down there to Charlotte and just absolutely destroy one of the worst put together teams in the league in the Panthers. And so this was an easy one again where Chiefs win, and even a double digit spread, the Chiefs cover that spread.
Yeah, I look at this and I go, this is one of those weeks. Again, I hate using the term get right game this late into the season, but this is really one of those kind of get right games for the Chiefs of just going like, listen, we haven't been great this year. Let's go up and beat the handicap. Let's go and beat up the handicap kid and really just put out that statement of going, hi everyone. Yeah, we lost to the Bills, but want to see what we can do? Because this is what we
Right?
can do. And they put up just big numbers, and this is just going to be a pretty brutal game for Panthers fans. They're going to be in a pretty rough spot the entire time, and yeah, I think Bryce Young is going to have himself a very bad game. But moving forward to the Tennessee Titans going to Houston to take on the Texans, where the Texans, after coming off of beating the Cowboys, are only an 8 point favorite in this one.
How many?
8 points.
8 points? Yeah. Well, the Titans are bad. So I
Yeah.
get that. And the Texans, much like you mentioned with the last one about get right games, I feel like that's what last week was against
Cowboys.
Dallas. The looking at that game, you looked at it and went, okay, Houston went in there and was like, sit down, Dallas. We are now the Texas team.
Yep.
And I think they keep that rolling. It looked a lot better. My God, Joe Mixon. The Bengals have got to be looking at that going, why did we let that guy go? That's what's missing in our game is the run, and we let Joe Mixon leave.
I'm loving
And
it.
he is doing great things in Houston. And honestly, against that Titans defense, I would not be shocked to see him have another multi-touchdown game. And so really, this was another easy one. Texans are going to win this game, and they're going to cover that spread.
Yeah, I just looked at the Titans and go, as long as Will Levis is the starting quarterback, I can't say they're really going to do much of anything. I think they're going to continue to struggle, and I think the Texans at this point, they've had their struggles this year, and we'll have to talk about CJ Stroud and this team a little bit more at a later date, just because I don't think they have been exactly what we thought they were going to be this year. But at this point, it's going to be really hard for me to look at this Titans team and say you're going to go out there and beat this Texans team that is just playing so well right now. Again, Joe Mixon is one of the best transactions this year going over to a team, and he's just been utterly phenomenal. And I think the Texans just going to continue to rely on him, and they're just going to say to the Titans, have fun. and the Titans will not win this game. Texans cover that 8-point spread. Now we get to the domestic violence bowl of the second time this year. And again, if you don't understand why we call it the domestic violence bowl, my mom is a Broncos fan. My dad is a Raiders fan. It is incredibly funny to me that I get to watch these two have their teams battle it out twice a year. Air quotes, call it the domestic violence bowl. But the Denver Broncos going into Vegas are 6-point favorites.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Raiders haven't done a whole lot of impressive things this year, and Sean Payton got the quarterback he wanted. And honestly, at this point, Bo Nix has entered himself into the chat for possibly being that Rookie of the Year candidate.
100%.
Like surprising as it may seem, none of us really expected it. I had a feeling that in 2 or 3 years we would see this emergence from him because Sean Payton is that kind of coach where he is really good at developing a quarterback. But he has developed this guy rapidly over the first 11 weeks of this season, and I see no reason why going into Vegas here in week 12 that we're not going to see that continue. That Raiders defense where we thought the front seven was going to be one of the best in football just hasn't got it done this year. And I think the Broncos are going to go into Vegas and take this win away from the Raiders fairly easily and cover that spread as a result.
Yeah, I think there's also another player that we haven't talked enough about in that conversation of offensive rookie of the year, and that's tight end Brock Bowers for the Raiders. He is, he's genuinely put out this year the best tight end stats in the entire season, and it's one of those things where everyone's just kind of looking at him and going like, damn, dude might be the best tight end in the NFL right now in his rookie season. That's how good he has been. But that's pretty much all the Raiders have at this point on offense. They don't have a run game. They didn't look great against Miami other than Brock Bowers. Again, we all know their quarterback situation is a mess. The Raiders right now, they are fighting for the number 1 spot. They're looking at the Titans going, please win another game. They're looking at the Giants going, please win another game. And you're hoping that the Browns continue. You hope that the Jags get a few more wins this year. It's just pretty much they're going, we're pretty comfortable losing out for the rest of the year. And even if they weren't comfortable in that sense of losing out for the rest of the year, because I know the players aren't, I know the coaching staff isn't, but the fans are. I still look at this and I go, the Broncos, they're playing confident football. Again, they haven't been perfect this year, but they have shown steady improvement week in, week out. And I just ultimately think Broncos walk into Vegas and they get the victory. And the Raiders will genuinely need a Vegas miracle hitting blackjack to ultimately get this win. And I just don't think they will. I don't think the cards are in their favor. Moving forward to where we have the 49ers going into Green Bay to take on the Packers. Now, I should state Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa both not playing in this game. And so the Packers are minus 6-point favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know who the backup for Brock Purdy is because last year it was Sam Darnold.
It's Brandon Allen.
Wow. Yeah, so that does not bode well for the 49ers. And really, like, this Packers offense, they don't have to do a lot often to win these games. Josh Jacobs has been doing a great job for this team, and it's in Lambeau. Maybe the 49ers would have a chance if it was in Santa Clara, but being that it's in Green Bay, as desperate as the 49ers are for a win right now, like sitting at 5-5 and second in their division, they need a win desperately right now. Unfortunately, due to the schedule, I don't think they get it this week. I think the Packers win this game. If the weather in that northeast area is still kind of messy and sloppy, it might not be a very high scoring game. So I think the 49ers probably will be able to cover that spread though, but the Packers win.
Yeah, I think if Brock Purdy was in this game, I think you could very easily make a case that the 49ers could win this game because, again, the 49ers are the Green Bay Packer killer, and I love it. I love watching it, but I think right now at this moment, the 49ers, again, Brandon Allen, I'm not even sure exactly what his name is. I know it's a B and an Allen. It's similar to my name, and it's one of those variations. But I'm not confident with it. I love Kyle Shanahan. I just think this is one of those situations where it's just a situation of there's just too many injuries to try to ultimately deal with here at the moment, and the Packers are playing some confident football. Do I think the 49ers are going to intercept Jordan Love? Yeah, I do. Jordan Love throws an interception every single game, and he's probably going to continue that. But I think the Packers are going to cover, and I do think the Packers are going to cover the spread just because I think the 49ers offense, they're probably looking at this going, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot last week against Seattle, where if we were able to win that game, we could afford to have another loss. But right now, I, like it's bad for the 49ers right now, and I don't think they're going to win. And I do think the Packers are going to cover. Going over to an NFC East or West battle, speaking of the 49ers, we have the Cardinals taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who the 49ers ended up losing to, where the Arizona Cardinals going up to Seattle are 1 point favorites. And it's going to be a rainy, cold day.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that it's in Seattle is really what gives the Seahawks that edge here. You know, the Seahawks have played better than what I think their team actually is at this point, you know, taking that win against away from the 49ers last week. But this Cardinals team, they're the top team in that division. They seem to have gotten things rolling this year, which was again about a year earlier than we both expected them to be able to get things working for them. But because it's going to be cold and rainy, that takes away that Marvin Harrison Jr. option, that Trey McBride, that scramble ability for Kyler Murray, which really hinders this Cardinals team. And the Seahawks are more built to handle that ground and pound sloppy weather with Kenneth Walker in there. I know James Conner is no slouch. He's a great running back. You know I love him.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think the Cardinals have enough to be able to pull a win out in Seattle with that 12th man in the rain. And so for that reason, I am picking the Seahawks to win and obviously cover that spread when it's a 1 point spread. Whoever you're picking a win is covering that spread basically.
Yeah, I look at this, if this wasn't as rainy or just kind of gross of a game, I would likely go with the Cardinals in this one just because I feel a little bit more comfortable. But since it's in Seattle, it's a wet, sloppy, cold game. I think Seattle, they're just going to kind of have that little bit of a. They're just going to have that little bit of je ne sais quoi aspect to it where they're just going to go, like, this is our environment. You think we're
Yep.
worried about playing in this? Like, you guys are from the desert. Rain scares you. And so we're gonna have the 12th man going, and it's gonna be that. And I just think the Seattle Seahawks are gonna pull it out. We haven't mentioned a toilet bowl game of the week. I think this could potentially have it. There's a lot of good games this week, so it's kind of hard to make that pick. But I think due to the weather and both of these teams kind of being fairly similar in a lot of aspects of terms of their skill on their team, I think we're probably going to see it here because neither quarterback I think is going to have a ton of confidence. It's really just going to be a running back affair. And yeah, I think both of us just think Kenneth Walker's just that slightly better option than James Conner. And for that, I picked the Seahawks to win and obviously cover the spread. Moving down to Los Angeles, where we have the Eagles coming in to take on the Rams, and the Eagles are minus 3 point favorites.
Yeah, this has the potential to be a really good Sunday night game. I mean, if the Rams can right the ship, then this could potentially even be a preview of a playoff matchup. But the Rams are, much like the 49ers, in a tough spot where they keep losing games they should be winning and then shocking the teams where we're like, oh, you can't win this one. And so maybe that's what happens this Sunday night against the Eagles. But honestly, I don't think so. The Eagles are hot right now. Since their bye week, they're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. They've just been climbing and winning, and Saquon Barkley is looking like a potential MVP candidate at this point. And honestly, if not for the tush push and Jalen Hurts taking away all those touchdowns from him,
He would have
Saquon Barkley,
so
I think,
many.
would be the front runner for MVP because
I
you
think he would
add
have
on
up to
all
like
those
15.
little, exactly, those little 1 yard touchdowns that Jalen Hurts has gotten instead of Saquon Barkley, and he's on a record-breaking pace at that
Mhm.
point.
Oh,
So
oh yeah.
honestly, I think the Eagles go into LA, they look at this and go, "Oh, we got some nice weather, we're going to have some fun with this." It's going to be a great game for everybody to watch because both these teams are going to score points.
Hmm.
I have no doubt that Sean McVay and the Rams with, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, like they're going to get some points up on the board for sure. This Eagles defense is good though. So I expect them to be able to get a couple of takeaways as well. Kenyon Mitchell is making a case not only for defensive rookie of the year, but defensive player of the year with the way he's been playing this season, especially since that bye week. For me though, I gotta go with the Eagles here. I think they're gonna win this game, and I think it's just gonna be a little too much for the Rams to even manage that spread. So Eagles win and Eagles cover.
Yeah, the Eagles at the beginning portion of the year, we're just looking at them going like, this is just a disaster team. This is just one of those teams where we're both looking at it going, they just might not have it. And then after that bye, it was just kind of, we're gonna outplay what our coach is doing because he's making a lot of stupid decisions, but we're going to essentially allow ourselves to ultimately get that win, and that's kind of what we are going to do. And we're going to exactly what I said, outplay our coach. And the Rams right now, we're just kind of seeing that situation of where Matthew Stafford, we're seeing the age come to effect here right now. And, Sean McVay is still coaching his ass off here at the moment. Kyron Williams is doing good, but they need a little bit more. I just don't think the Rams are going to have just enough firepower to ultimately get this game win. And so, yeah, I just have to agree with you. I think the Eagles are ultimately going to get this win, and I do think they are going to cover that spread. Now, moving over to our Monday night football game of the week. We don't have to travel far because it's in the exact same spot, the exact same stadium. This time it's the Chargers playing, and the Ravens come in to meet them. So we have a matchup of the brothers. The Harbaughs meet for only, I think it's the third time, but it's the first time since they faced off against each other in the Super Bowl. And the Baltimore Ravens are minus 3 point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, this has the potential to be a great game, just like last week when it was Bengals and Chargers was an excellent game. This I expect to see the same. Um, Derrick Henry is still that unstoppable force, and so you can expect him to rack up the yards, get himself a touchdown. Lamar Jackson looked more human last week, but he always does against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's sort of an outlier where you take those Steelers games and you throw them away when it's Lamar Jackson because you know he's not going to look good. He never does. We won't see that this week. He's going to likely light it up. Zay Flowers will be getting a lot of targets. Isaiah Likely. It's going to be a good game, and I don't think the Chargers are going to have quite enough to hang with the Ravens. However, if I'm wrong, if the Chargers pull a win out here, then we're very rapidly looking at it going, maybe the Chargers are one of the favorites in the AFC to be going to that championship game, and the Ravens need to sit back down because this is a big matchup for the standings within the AFC this week. The Ravens, they can get a win after that Steelers loss on Thursday. That brings them back in line for maybe getting that first place spot. But with a loss, that really solidifies the Chargers getting a wild card spot this year, and that makes it that much harder for the Ravens to snag one of them for themselves. So I think there's just more on the line for the Ravens this week, and so I think the Ravens are going to be playing hungry. I think the Ravens get it done, and they go into LA and they get this win.
Yeah, this is going to be a phenomenal game. I love everything about this matchup where the Ravens are going to be playing a little bit pissed off here because again, falling to the Steelers in a very very close matchup. But they didn't play well, and they're going to look at the Chargers and go, listen, we know you have the exact same amount of wins as us, but we talked about the Cardinals being a year ahead of schedule. This Chargers team is almost feeling like they're 2 years ahead of schedule where we thought they were supposed to be. But that just goes to show how good of a coach Harbaugh is and his philosophy. And I think his philosophy is still going to be the same thing here. We are going to pound the ball against you down on the ground. We're not going to make it easy. So Roquan Smith, you better get yourselves ready because you are going to be having a very, very busy night. And Justin Herbert is playing such good complementary football this year. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not the world's biggest fan of that term when speaking of quarterbacks going, oh, we want him to play complementary football. But he's doing so well. Like, this is the perfect example of a team just playing the way that their head coach wants to, and we see what this Chargers team is capable of, and they have been so much fun to watch, man. And I think the Chargers do have an opportunity to potentially come out and win this game. But with that being said, I've also watched Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield together, and when those two guys get going, it's really hard to stop them. And I don't know what to expect from a pissed off Lamar Jackson and Baltimore Ravens team, but I would have to imagine that it would be a situation of both of those teams doing excellent work. And I think the Ravens are going to come away with this win, and I do think they're going to cover that spread.
Yeah, I think the wild card in this game is going to be you mentioned Roquan Smith, and it's going to be the Roquan Smith and J.K. Dobbins battle
Yeah,
because these two guys very familiar with each other.
yes, they are.
Dobbins was the Ravens running back last year, and so they practiced against each other. I think that's going to be where the Ravens get their edge, much like the Steelers had that edge against the Chargers early in the season because of that familiarity with Dobbins, the ability to, okay, we know what moves he likes to make, we know how he likes to run it, so we know how to stop him. I
Yes.
think the Ravens take advantage of that as well and find a way to slow Dobbins down while they look at their new shiny back in Derrick Henry and go, take the
This is what
ball,
we were
run
expecting you
top
to be.
speed with that big shit-eating grin on your face and just run some dudes over.
Yep. But that is all for this episode here this week, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. But till next time, for Sterling, I'm Brendan, saying peace.